And welcome in, everybody, as Jose and I, me being Nick, brings to you guys live our picks for UFC Fight Night. Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov. This fight's coming to you guys on July 1st, this Saturday, with the prelims at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So we're getting back towards normal timing for our cards. After the afternoon card we saw last weekend, we're going to get a little bit more of an evening and night card coming at you from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. As I mentioned earlier, the main headlining fight on this card is Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov. But before we get too deep into things, Jose, let's briefly discuss our picks from last week. It was overall a pretty good week. Specifically Topuria. That was the biggest pick. He was my 5 weight, and wow, he absolutely dominated to get a 50-42 score. I mean, I'm not sure that I've seen that in the last couple of years of at least UFC fights. Not that it never happens, but man, that's complete domination for 5 rounds. Josh Emmett gave it his all, man. He got beat up. It really looked like he was going to get knocked out multiple times. He was able to fight through it and last that fight. And towards the end of the 5th round, it looked like he was really just going to throw for the fences to get Topuria to knock out, but it just couldn't happen, man. I don't know if you have any comments on that fight, but it was just crazy, dude. Topuria clearly dictated the pace from the start, and it asserted dominance.
Yeah, so I actually couldn't watch all the fights entirely, but from what I saw from the highlights right off the bat, yeah, I saw Taporia just landing clean shots, knocking Smith
Yep.
out down, and
Yep.
just clean, looking more powerful. I mean, I hate to say it, but this fight did make Emmett Smith kind of look almost like a shadow of himself of what he used to be. I hate to say it, maybe his age and that loss after Yair, I do think maybe that was maybe his last run at this at the title. To be honest, I think you have other killers with finishing instincts, even though he didn't get the finish in this case. But Ilia Topuria can put lights out any given moment, and we saw him rock Josh Emmett many times. So that being said, yeah. Ilia Topuria, he did live up to the expectations that we saw him. I had him, I like yourself, I had him as well, taking the W over
Yeah.
Emmett. So that being said, yeah, I'm really happy that he proved that he showed out comes Saturday morning or afternoon, I should say. And now I'm even more excited because in the past he was supposed to fight Paddy Pimblett, where they were talking about it before the Jarrett Gorin fight.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, now looking back, that would have been an extreme. I think that would have been an extremely dangerous fight for Paddy. And to be honest, I will have Ilia Topuria over Paddy any day. So
And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think Ilia is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the top 5 for sure.
We'd be, dude, we wouldn't, nobody would even care about our opinion if we were going to sit here and act like Patty is a top tier lightweight in the UFC. I'm sorry to say he's not. And he's a good guy. I like him. I'm a fan of him. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he could compete with the top 5 in the lightweight division. It's not even close. It's laughably close. I think the spreads there would be over 500 against him for any of those top 5. It's just laughable. I think Patty is going to really have to think about maybe a different weight class, or he's going to have to improve himself in some other ways that most fighters aren't able to if he's going to actually think he's going to get a belt in the UFC, to be quite honest. Now, I don't mean to talk down on Patty. He kind of catch some strays there when we're discussing the fights from last week, but I'm not talking down on Josh Emmett either. I know he lost the fight, and you're probably right that he's never going to really get a true belt run again, but in the end, man, he really showed some heart out there. He solidified his fan favorite status in my mind. It's impossible to root against a guy who's willing to put his heart out there. For the amount of times that he got wrecked, blood's all over the floor. I mean, the ref's asking him if he even wants to fight. And he's like, yeah, of course I want to fight. He can't even see out of his eye, and he's still fighting. Like, I'm not saying that there's a lot of fighters that would give up in that situation, but there was no doubt that Josh Emmett had faith that he could still win that fight via knockout up until the last second. He was throwing some real haymakers. He did not give up at all, which I have a lot of respect for. But we should honestly move on. We don't want to dwell too much on the past, but it is nice. Another quick note from last week, too. Cedric Dumas. Wow. With the last second opponent, Cody Brundage. Lots of people come in, sorry to say, including you, Jose. Thought Cody Brundage was just going to come in late, you know what I'm saying, late, and just You just be like, oh, I'm going to take him down, wrestle him, and choke him out. Cedric said no. This is my time. And to be fair, I also lost a pick as well last week. Jose had Brendan Allen, who did end up getting the submission, I believe, against Silva. I did not think that was going to be coming that easy. Silva has the power, couldn't make it happen. So good for Brendan Allen. But in the end, at least it looks like our main picks hit last week. So we're going to continue that momentum moving forward. Just to reiterate for everybody watching, our weight system goes from a 5-to-1 scale in the sense of 5 being the highest weight and 1 being the lowest weight. So you're going to pick one fight, and that fight's going to be 1 to 5. And you can only use that number once. And my 5 weight is my most confident pick. My 1 weight's my least confident pick, and obviously it scales in between. We like to start with our most confident picks here at Moneyline MMA. So starting on this Saturday, July 1st, with my most confident pick, I'm going to go with what's listed currently as the second fight on the main event. And this is Benoit Saint Denis fighting Ismael Bonfim. This is a lightweight matchup with Bonfim coming off of a lightning in a bottle knockout against Terrence McKinney. I believe it was the same card his brother fought on, UFC 283 or something like that. Absolutely decimated. Bonfim's a young up-and-coming guy against Benoit Saint Denis, a well-established fighter, and he's currently the underdog, is Saint Denis at plus 230, with Bonfim having a fully fleshed out minus 310 next to his name, which is just... that's a lot to give a kid that's 26. He has shown flashes of dominance, but in the end, he's only in 2 UFC fights. So all that being said, Jose, I'm curious to see what you're at with this one.
So yeah, Nick, like I'm pretty excited about this fight. Both guys are relatively pretty young, 27 years old. I will say that yeah, Ismael does have quite a bit more experience, being 19-3 against Benoit. And that being said, I'm kind of surprised to see Benoit be this much of an underdog, because I thought it would have been closer, especially since he's the taller guy and has a longer reach. And he himself, he initiates the grappling a lot, and I like the combination of, like, I like to say it's a lot, the taller guys. He's 5'11", and he has a slight reach advantage. And again, they both strike at similar rates. I think overall this fight will be majority on the feet, and if it's going to be mostly on the feet, I feel pretty confident going with Ismael. He has 100% takedown defense, and even though he, that's pretty much just because how low he's been in the UFC. But again, he's not been in the UFC long, but he's definitely been in the game quite a bit now. And being 19-3, being the same age as Benoit, yeah, I'm gonna go with Ismael. And also, nothing against Benoit too. I just don't know much about his camp too either. So I think Ismael though, because it's just a French camp. I'm not too familiar, because the whole MMA French scene is still growing, and you can't compare it anywhere compared to like the Brazilian and the United States MMA fight scene. So that being said, yeah, I'm gonna go with Ismael on this one as my 5 weight, and I have him winning this decision, or he can eat it himself, put him out. Out of his 19 wins, 9 of them come via knockout. But Benoit, he has sneaky submissions too. 8 out of his 10 wins come via submission. So if you were to go with him, since he has the longer arms, I would go with him as a submission win. But overall, if you want decision and potential knockout, I would feel confident with Ismael.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that, Jose. And the fact of the matter is Saint Denis has never been finished in any of his pro fights. So, it's a tough step for me to take to say that Bonfim is going to be the one that makes that first finish come. I don't know, man, but I totally agree that I'm really looking at his striking. That's the main thing that I think separates him here in this matchup. I think just on the feet, he's levels better, and he's much more live for a knockout or something crazy. And if Saint Denis wants to shoot for takedowns, what are the odds that we see Bonfim go for another knee up the middle? You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of different things that we could see out of Bonfim that could lead to his success. You did mention that 100% takedown defense, which I agree with. But he has that's a little harder to say is like established. I think it's like 4 takedown attempts that he's deflected away in his 2 UFC fights. So it's not quite anything that crazy, but it's still something to be said that he is going to be able to move his, he has shown the ability at least to move his hips, get out of the way of takedowns, and his striking differential is just insane. He's landing 2 times more significant strikes than he absorbs. I just think that that's pretty significant here. And if my expectation goes right of him being able to keep this fight on the feet, there's no way he doesn't get this job done.
Yeah, yeah, man. So yeah, I can't stress this enough. Yeah, I agree with you on all those points. And for that being said, yeah, I agree with you on having Ismail as my five weight like yourself.
And just so everybody who's listening knows, we don't make these picks together or anything. These picks are made individually. Just so happened that Jose and I's picks lined up in this case. But since that was our five weight, Jose, I'll let you take it away with your four weight next.
Yeah, so for my four weight, this is actually in the women's flyweight bout between Ariana Lipski and Melissa Gatto. Right now, Ariana Lipski is the betting underdog at plus 162, while Melissa Gatto is the betting favorite at minus 210. Yeah, for this one, I'm going to take the underdog. I'm going to take Ariane Lipski. Reason being is that Melissa Gatto, she's been in the UFC already quite a bit. Out of her 9 fights, she's only won 4 of them, and she's come up short to not really the biggest names, to be honest. She has lost to Antonia Shevchenko, so not she's not as impressive as her older sister, of course, but also as well as Montana De La Rosa. Losing to them, it's like not it's not the biggest thing that like pops out to me. So I don't really see nothing special in her, to be honest. I think the biggest thing she has for her is that she has a great camp behind her with American Top Team. So that being said, I do think she has great coaches behind her and her. But that being said, I like to mention before, I do like to go with a little bit sometimes the bigger people, because just overall I just feel like the slightly bigger people times usually win in my opinion. So like even though Ariane Lipski is just 1 inch taller, she doesn't have a reach advantage, but overall she throws heavy punches, 3.86 land per minute. Melissa Gatto throws 3.27. That being said, yeah, they don't really initiate takedown a lot. They both have heavy defense, so this is going to be a striking match in my opinion. And for this one, I'm not shying too much away of losing to Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez, I mean, I feel like maybe Ariane Lipski was more likely to get submitted by her than to go losing to unanimous decision. So maybe Melissa Gatto's veteran experience could drag this out to a unanimous decision, which is why I think she is the heavy favorite in this one. But I think Ariane Lipski can come in guns blazing and make it an early night. At least take the win. You know, last week with Macy Barber's fight too. Like that one, I was not expecting her to win, but the way she came in and dominated, I kind of see maybe Ariane Lipski doing something similar. So sorry, like me going on like that. What weight do you have this fight at, Nick?
I have this down as my two weight. So I agree with you on Lipski, but I'm a little less confident for sure in her getting it done against Gatto. But for me, you know, if your prediction is right in that this is going to be a standing fight, I really think Lipski should be able to have the edge striking wise. Gatto to me is more of like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like I don't mind being on my back, I'm going to try submitting you kind of fighter. She does have a couple of knockouts on her career, but they're all like they're from a while ago. She got a body kick win against Sajara, but even in that fight, I don't think she was really impressing that much. So I don't know, man. You know, you mentioned that fight against Tracy Cortez as well. I just think if Gatto's going to win this fight via decisions, he's going to have to incorporate those takedowns and use her jiu-jitsu to be on the ground, because I think Lipski's going to be able to outstrike her. Lipski does have a submission on her record as well, so she also has shown the ability to grapple. Maybe not as quite as good at jiu-jitsu, but in the end, I just think kind of Lipski is a little bit better overall.
Yeah, Nick. I agree with you. So yeah, this looks like this is just another fight we both agree on. I have them at my. Well, I have Lipski as my 4 weight, and you have her as your 2 weight.
Yep. Yep, so we do agree. I'm just a little less confident than you are since you have that 4 weight pick. But yeah, moving on to my 4 weight, we're finally going to discuss the main event of the evening, Jose. This is a well-anticipated fight between Sean Strickland and Abus Magomedov. This guy's making his UFC, excuse me, not necessarily debut, but it's almost like his UFC debut, because he only fought for 19 seconds against Dustin Stoltzfus and absolutely cleaned him. So we really haven't gotten to see a whole lot of Abus in the UFC, but he has plenty of experience in previous organizations like the PFL, of course. And I believe there's a Russian, the KSW or something like that as well, somewhere in there. So he's got experience. There's no doubt about Abus having seen a lot of talent, a high-end talent as well. And it is interesting to me that after one KO, the UFC puts him on the main event with Sean Strickland. They kind of fast tracked him. I think Sean Strickland, it's a kind of a slippery slope in the middleweight division with Izzy. Now that Pereira has left, it's kind of Izzy, then Whitaker, then who else, And at this point, we're going to see Dricus du Plessis get his chance. And maybe he can dethrone Whitaker from that spot. But other than those guys, it's Sean Strickland. Jared Cannonier deserves his respect as well, but I don't think he's around for that much longer. He's getting really old. So we'll see, man. But that being said, Sean Strickland's looking at this fight as an opportunity to potentially bypass some of those contenders and get a belt shot for himself. He's in his low 30s, and this is the right time for him to make the run in his prime, coming off a win in his last fight. So I don't know, man, against Nassourdimov. So that's my four-weight pick. Just to reiterate, I am taking Sean Strickland on this one. He's a minus 192 favorite, fighting against Abus Magomedov as a plus 148 dog. By no means do I think this is going to be easy for Strickland, but I do think he's going to be able to pull it off. Jose, what are you thinking?
So, yeah, for this one, this is another fight. I agree with you in terms of who takes the W, and I'm leaning towards Sean Strickland. Reason being is, I think it's crazy. Both these guys have similar records: 26-5, 25-4-1, almost identical. And yeah, it seems like they're probably pushing Magomedov like a similar route to like Alex Pereira, like a guy already coming in with a lot of experience and just throw him up. Yeah, because Izzy needs some new challengers, and Sean Strickland is kind of like maybe he's on the verge of being a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
But that win against Imavov is why I have Sean Strickland taking this W, getting a unanimous decision win over Imavov, especially with Imavov. Before Sean Strickland, he was riding a 3-fight winning streak, which included wins over Edmund Shabazian and Joaquin Buckley, and he's been in the UFC already for quite some time, since 2020. He's got more experience in the UFC than Magomedov, and he himself has racked up some pretty impressive wins against some impressive fighters in the UFC. And Sean Strickland was able to bounce back from that Jared Cannonier split decision loss, which I think is kind of big now, seeing how we saw Jared Cannonier perform against Vittori pretty recently, just dominating it. And Sean Strickland, he throws a high volume of punches and steps forward. So, man, I kind of maybe seeing a rematch of that eventually down the line would be pretty fun. To see Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland too. But yeah, seeing him go to a split decision with Jared Cannonier, especially how Jared Cannonier looked like his last fight, and beating Imavov, someone who I think is probably better than Magomedov. That's why I'm leaning with Sean Strickland, and it's no surprise that he's a strong favorite in this one, because yeah, he's a dog. He steps forward, he's not afraid to get hit, and he throws the high volume of punches. And overall, yeah, Magomedov doesn't really. It's how long he's been in the UFC, so these stats really aren't there. He's gonna have absolutely no grappling right now, as we can see. Take the 0 takedown average, 0 takedown accuracy, because he won via TKO in the first round in his UFC debut. So there's a lot. Really, I think there's gonna be a lot of questions here too. We're gonna see how he's going to approach Sean Strickland, because I would not be surprised if he tries to out wrestle being Magomedov. I seen the last name. He's gonna try to do a lot of grappling, I'm sure. So these stats definitely on the UFC.com are not accurate, and I want to see how Sean Strickland will do against some of that Dagestani wrestling. Dagestani, I hope it is correct, because I want to see how he fares with that type of pressure. But I'm not too worried, because Sean Strickland does have an 85% takedown defense, and he really doesn't. Against Jack Hermanson, a great grappler too, he went to split decision with him. So I think Sean Strickland does a good job of staying on his feet and keeping the fight on his feet, and just coming at you, taking hard hits to the head, and you throw a hard one at him, he'll throw another hard one back at you. He's that type of fighter. So I have Sean Strickland. I don't know if he can win this. Maybe I would say, yeah, I don't know if he can put out Magomedov, but I can see him winning this unanimous decision.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough call to predict the ending there, but pretty much I echo what you said, on top of the fact that we also don't have much experience with Abus in 5 rounds. If this is going to look to going that far, I think that's going to be pretty imperative. I think Strickland's going to be a lot more prepared for those 4th and 5th rounds than Abus might be. And also keep in mind that this is going to be a small cage over in Vegas, and I do believe that Sean Strickland's style of kind of just stepping forward and being aggressive is going to make Abus feel like he doesn't have enough room. Like it's a small cage in there. I wonder if he's going to kind of feel claustrophobic in the sense that he's going to not have as much room to move around and get free and make space. I think that's all going to benefit Sean Strickland. Like you kind of mentioned, there's potential for some Dagestani wrestling, but in the end, I really don't think that's going to be as big of a factor. Just looking at his history, at least, even in the PFL and the KSW, he didn't utilize his wrestling and jiu-jitsu as much. So we'll see, but that's something he could fine-tune and bring out at any point, which is yet another reason why I'm not confident enough to make Strickland my 5-weight.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, me, I have him as my 2-weight. Yes. So, yeah, you have him as your 4-weight. So,
Yep.
that being said, yeah, we both agree again on this fight. You're just more confident than I am. But yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I still
yeah,
like Strickland a lot. I really do think he's the masterclass of striking in general. And we'll have to see if he's able to continue a nice little streak to try and make a run for the belt here. Because I think beating this is an interesting, like, you got to respect Strickland for taking this fight, because it's not like I guess it is a main event, so for him it's almost like he doesn't care who he's fighting because it's a main event. But I don't know, this is a guy that doesn't have as much notoriety in the UFC, and you almost wonder, like, okay, so what now? What if Strickland wins? I'm thinking they should think about giving him another opportunity to be the number one contender, but I don't know, man. Like when you're looking at a guy like Duplessis potentially beating Whitaker, that's going to way outplay Strickland beating Magomedov here. So to me, I gotta respect Strickland a lot because he has a lot to lose. Excuse me, by losing this fight against the guy with one fight in the UFC.
yeah, I agree with you. What does that say about Strickland for sure? Yeah, losing to another guy who doesn't have much experience in the UFC. Again, we saw Alex Pereira become champion eventually, so
Yeah.
that would say a lot, man. If he beats Strickland, we'll definitely have a new contender in the middleweight division.
Talk about Strickland feeling bad about giving these dudes all their shots and not getting his own.
That's what I'm saying. That he may become the new gatekeeper, which
Yeah.
happens in the sport.
It happens. It happens. So yeah, that being said, that's my 4-weight. We've covered both of our 4-weights now. So that brings us down to our 3-weight pick. Jose, take it away.
Yes, so for my 3-weight, this is the lightweight bout between Damir Ismagulov and Grant Dawson. Right now, Damir, he is the betting favorite at -140, while Grant Dawson is the betting underdog at +110. I thought this would be closer, especially because Grant Dawson, man's been looking nothing but phenomenal, undefeated in the UFC. He does have a draw against Ricky Glenn. But other than that, dude's been looking nothing but phenomenal. He's a submission machine. 13 out of his 19 wins come via submission. He has 4 KO/TKOs on his record. And Damir Ismagulov, he was looking pretty good too in his UFC career run up until he ran to Arman Tarzukian. But that being said, Arman, we just saw Arman come back. We did see him kind of get rocked a bit, but at the end he got the finish, and Arman's also making his way up the lightweight ladder as well. So these are just the type of guys that are the lightweight division's filled with, just these animals that have these ridiculous records, and this is where you're finding out who's the best of the best. And Damir, I think he's never been submitted in his career at all. So the 13 submission wins that Grant Dawson has, he's really going to have to light up Damir a lot on his feet, which I think is going to be tough to do as is, because Damir already throws more significant strikes per minute than Grant Dawson. So I think Damir, and not much either, it's just 3.78 versus 3.12. Both guys are kind of flashy too. So I think Grant Dawson may be looking for that submission, and I think Damir is going to just be looking to get that unanimous decision win. So for this one, I do have Damir as my 3-weight, and I don't know if he can finish Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson really he's only lost once via KO/TKO, and he himself has never been submitted. So I think I do think that Damir may be able to hand Grant Dawson his first decision loss. That's the way I look at how this fight will turn out. So I don't know if either guy will necessarily get finished. It's going to be one or the other, one winning by unanimous decision. So for that one, that's what I have, Nick. What weight do you have this fight at?
Yeah, it's just funny. I have this as my three weight as well. Actually, we do agree. And I was just laughing because you were so confident that this fight's going to end in decision, but I don't see a reason for it not to, man. Because every single one of Demir's fights end in decision. It's just like normal for him. I do nonetheless though. I do also have Demir as my three weight, which is hilarious in and of itself that we picked him separately. For me, it's trying to display the fact that I have confidence in Demir, but I'm not like over the moon confident necessarily. There's a couple of small things that kind of withhold my confidence. One of them being the fact that he like semi-retired or like he was gonna retire and he had these health problems and then he's just like, nah, actually I'm fighting again. I really don't know anything about what those health problems ended up being. If it was just like a improper diagnosis or if he's just like, oh no, I actually feel better, never mind. Who knows? But he's not missed. 2020 was the only year he didn't fight, and otherwise he's been relatively active and only having lost to Arman Sarukian, excuse me, and that's top level competition. A guy who can wrestle just as good, if not better, than Grant Dawson. Which is another thing. Like Tsarukian got 7 takedowns on Demir, and that's concerning, right? In one sense, it's like, okay, if Tsarukian can get all those takedowns, surely Grant Dawson can, right? Because Grant Dawson out wrestled and choked out an Olympic gold medalist Mark Madsen, right? Like it's just one of those things. So I'm almost surprised that Grant Dawson isn't the favorite, just based on some of those like short-sighted things that I feel like a lot of MMA fans are more prone to believe and not think about history. But in the end, man, I pretty much echo everything else you said. I'm only stating the reasons why I didn't make Demir my fifth weight, because I have a lot of confidence in Demir to get this job done. I think by far he's the better striker. I mean, that to me is going to be one of the biggest polarizing differences we see is the difference in striking. Now, can Demir deflect the takedowns? He didn't show the ability to against Sarukian, but outside of that fight, his takedown defense is flawless. He's only been taken down once by Groom Kutaladze back in 2022. Outside of that fight against Sarukian, Demir has not been taken down. So is Grant Dawson's wrestling ability going to be able to get to Demir and get him down to the ground is definitely one of the big questions. But even then, okay, so he's won one of the rounds and he got a takedown and he won the round. There's still 2 more rounds to win there. I definitely am with you on this, probably going for a decision. There's no way I'm betting on anything less than that. But nonetheless, I think my main pick here is obviously Demir. My main bet is going to be Demir money line. And if you wanted to take something, go ahead and take over on the rounds because it will likely go to decision. But there's just nothing to be guaranteed. There is a possibility that Demir clips Grant Dawson and gets him KO'd. It's not happened in his UFC history, at least, but I wouldn't be surprised to see something crazy happen on Saturday night.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Nick. This one definitely was for me. I was pretty confident, but I like where I placed him at. Maybe I definitely could have moved him up to my 4 weight for sure, but I feel pretty confident keeping him at my 3 weight. And it just by coincidence we happen to agree again, and we're at the same weight for this one. So
Yeah.
yeah, for this one you have both Nick and I for Demir as our 3 weight.
Yep. Yeah. That's funny that we agree on that. So that being said, then we have all but one of the fights discussed. We always discuss 5 fights here at Moneyline MMA, the main 5 on the card. We've discussed 4 of the 5, and we have been now left with Max Griffin versus Michael Morales. This is an interesting one, and it just so happens, obviously, those of you listening would know that by process of elimination, this fight is down to both of our 1 weights. Meaning that's interesting. That's almost good for the matchmakers of this fight, because it shows that it's a fight that neither of us have as much confidence in our pick to win. Personally, I'm going with the old veteran Max Griffin. This is a tale of an old veteran versus a young stud who's trying to come in and continue his undefeated streak. Max Griffin's actually the underdog here as well at plus 190, with the young kid Morales being minus 250. Before I go on too long, though, Jose, for your 1 weight, do you agree or disagree?
So yeah, this one, dude, also by coincidence, this one I'm going with the underdog Max Griffin. Actually don't know why he is the underdog in this case. I thought he would have been the favorite. I am kind of like interested to see how this. He's like kind of an old dog, but not at the same time. I feel like he's been kind of just getting more into his rhythm as of late. Besides that, like since the Ramiz Brahmanaj fight and then on, he's been looking nothing but phenomenal. And even though he went to split decision loss to Neil Magny just racked up. We just saw this past weekend another split decision win. But before that, Neil Magny he was up and down as always. And he's fought who's who of the UFC by now. And going to split decision against Neil Magny is I think it's still good because Neil Magny is not an easy guy to deal with. He's tall, lengthy, he moves awkwardly. He's really well at utilizing the clinch. He won't throw a lot of strikes at you. He'll mostly almost grapple you on the feet and slowly break you down that way. It's an interesting aspect to see how people deal with Neil Magny. Neil Magny. I hate to say he is like a gatekeeper, to be honest, at the 170 weight class. So going to split decision with him, I definitely I think shows a lot that you're improving, or at least good enough to hang up there with the big guys. And if he would have beat Neil Magny, he definitely would have been facing guys more closer to like sixth, seventh rank, maybe even a 5 weight. Because Max Griffin, he has power, and I can I would take Max Griffin possibly making it lights out anytime. Because Michael Morales, he's dangerous, but he's 23 and not much of UFC experience. I do think his first round TKO win over Trevin Giles is impressive because Trevin Giles, he's been in the UFC for a bit, and he has power. Trevin Giles is a powerful guy, even though he has only six TKOs on his record. He's a powerful guy. So seeing a young stud like Michael Morales knock him out kind of worries me, but not enough where I feel confident enough that Max Griffin should be, I think, running over this 23-year-old kid. To be honest, so I'm not like I'm not sure exactly why he's the heavy favorite. Their grapplings I don't think are gonna differ much. I think you're really gonna see a veteran shine come Saturday night. So for this one, yeah, I have Max Griffin as my one weight.
Especially because looking at some of the experience that Max Griffin has seen, dude, Max Griffin's only ever been knocked out by the guy himself, Colby Covington, back in 2016, dude. That was so long ago for him to be fighting. That was UFC 202, Diaz versus McGregor 2, and he
Yeah,
gets knocked out by Colby Covington. I mean, there's been some serious years of experience on Max Griffin, and I can agree with you that he's not necessarily completely out of his prime.
yeah, he has been out, and he did follow up with a eventually with a nice unanimous decision win over the current PKFC champ Mike Perry. And so I do think Max Shreve, he hangs in there with those dogs. He's gonna be throwing wins. He's back in the day. He also went to split decision. Unfortunately, he lost, but against Chidi Niokwani. So he Thiago Alves, he's fought Alex Morono, Alex Oliveira. He has a win over Carlos Condit. So Tim Means as of recently. So yeah, Max Griffin, yeah, I think he will get this win, and I think he can make it if lights out. If not lights out, definitely unanimous decision. So for this one, I feel confident with the underdog Max Griffin.
Yeah, man. Honestly, the more we talk about it, it almost makes me want to put Max Griffin at my 2 weight and move Lipsky down. But in the same degree, I'm still pretty confident in Lipsky as well. Just not getting taken down to the ground. So that being said, that's a full slate that we agree on there. That's not common. Any listener here at Moneyline MMA would know that almost every single one of the cards that we discuss has an agree or disagreement or two, sometimes more than that even, and sometimes on the 5 weights even, where our 5 weights have disagreed with each other, and that's always fun to discuss those. But that's just the nature of the sport. Sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't. We got Max Griffin to upset the undefeated Michael Morales this Saturday. And fellas, this is the fight card coming up before UFC 298, man. We're getting to a perennial mark for the UFC in the UFC 300, and there's all this news now about Zuckerberg and Elon Musk fighting on UFC 300. I don't know if you saw that literally earlier today. Chael Sonnen went on Ariel's show and said that Mark Zuckerberg called him and said that they were going to fight on UFC 300. Just a hilarious, like, part of me thought that it was for the memes. Chael is awesome for the memes, so I would not take that as like a direct source, like it's actually happening. But it is funny. And that being said, main thing I wanted to bring up there is that UFC 298 is coming up. The card after this one on July 8th. We got to pump this card up. This is going to be so exciting with Brandon Moreno defending his belt against the guy who's beat him multiple times. Man, I'm telling you, the excitement for this card in my heart is already ramping up, and we haven't even gotten to this Saturday yet. So definitely keep some ears out for some posts on social media from us. And as always, we're going to be going live the week ahead. Now keep in mind that that Tuesday before the fight is the 4th of July. So we'll have to follow up if the schedule of ours changes at all due to the holiday. But in all likelihood, we are going to continue to try and get live around this time, 5:30 to 6 o'clock every Monday afternoon for consistency purposes to discuss these fights. So thanks anyone who was here to watch and listen. Let us know in the comments who you're picking and who you're putting in your parlay. Definitely follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA. Subscribe here to at least get notified when we're going live every week. And you can have some interaction with us in the chat as well if you have any questions. But other than that, again, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week for one of the most exciting cards of the year.
Yes, see you guys next week.
See you guys later.